to get a conviction. The chief financial officer of Eli Lilly has resigned over allegations of inappropriate personal relationship. The drug maker says an independent investigation found what it called consensual, though inappropriate, communications between Josh Smiley and certain Lilly employees. Lilly says Smiley's conduct was not related to any business matters. In Myanmar, police fired rubber bullets, tear gas and water cannon at demonstrators throughout the country today. Protesters opposed to the military coup were defying a ban on public gatherings. Myanmar's military leader has publicly defended his actions, repeating claims that last November's election.
We opened new position on euro. Let me all close previous profit, so you guys will see where we open this position. Okay, position, short position, so you still have time. If you want to see it moved up, you still have time to sell short euro. Okay, position opened at 121.044.
Women leaders were actually better at controlling the deaths from COVID-19. Do you think out of this pandemic, we'll see more countries be willing to elect female leaders?
When we look at women leaders, we tend to project on them baggage that they shouldn't bear.
Women are given an opportunity when no one else wants to do the job.
Women had a very clear objective. They wanted to save lives.
The women leaders, if you look at their careers, have also built up a level of trust.
In fact, women have to be better at communication in order to be elected as leaders, whereas this doesn't hold true for men.
We need to get those sexist stereotypes out of our head and give women a fair run for leadership.
Trying to change the stereotypes about women is not only the business of women, but men have to be part of it.
Do you have any interest if President Biden invited you just to come and take a tour of the White House just to see what it looks like?
If he wants to talk about how to empower people, boy, I would be there in a nanosecond.
Trading revenues coming in better than expected. Everything cash, $1.4 trillion of cash. One of the most notable aspects of this report that was stellar.
I'm pleased that Leader Schumer and I were able to reach an agreement on a fair process and estimated timeline for the upcoming Senate trial. It preserves due process and the rights of both sides. It will give senators as jurors ample time to review the case and the arguments that each side will present.
Senator Mitch McConnell there, the minority leader on impeachment proceedings in Washington, D.C. From New York City this morning, good morning. Alongside Tom Keene and Lisa Bravis, I'm Jonathan Ferro. Your price action shaping up as follows, about 1 hour and 12 minutes away from the opening bell this Tuesday morning. An equity market that pulls back from all-time highs on the S&P 500. Just a little bit here. Keep saying it through the morning. No drama. Down 0.2 of 1%. 3,900, Tom. A 3,900 handle on the S&P 500, February 9th. It has happened quickly, really, really quickly. The FX market, euro dollar with a 121 handle. It's a weaker dollar story through G10 this morning. Euro firmer by 0.4%, and yields back in a little bit. Just undoing some of the moves we saw this time yesterday. Yields lower, coming in 2 basis points to about 115. And in the commodity market, had this nice lift in the commodity complex through the last couple of days, the last several weeks, really. Today, just a little bit softer, down 1/3 of 1%, Tom, on crude, about $58 a barrel.
John, a quick take here. As you mentioned yesterday, the yield, the big negative yields come in Europe as well. I look at the Swiss 20, you look at the German 10, and the answer is they're speaking.
And the German 2-year, just focus on the front end for a minute. We talked earlier on the program, Tom, about a shortage of assets. In Germany, that's been a problem for a while now. For anyone who's familiar with the way the overnight...
You need to place stop on profit for euro. 121.024. The 121.024.4, yeah? Okay, 2 pips down.
These themes, Tom, keeps going back to this idea that because of the central bank intervention in certain places, we have an asset shortage.
Well, the asset shortage may be there, and we'll see that in the coming days on the tape and in the markets. This is an important interview. Julie Norman is at the University of College in London. She is a political science professor, but is truly one of the world's experts on political activism and social movement. A different take on what we will witness in Washington today. Julie Norman, if you look at the Republicans, the grand old party, the path from Lincoln to where they are right now, there seem to be partitions, and one of them is militia, and somewhat the violence we saw January 6th as well. Tell us about the social movement that defines a more assertive, a more aggressive Republican Party.
Well, Tom, I think there are different movements going on right now in the Republican Party, and that's pretty clear, and across the left as well. I mean, part of what we're seeing in the Republican Party is people who have very legitimate grievances, who saw Trump as somewhat of a channel for that and are just kind of getting into more of this populist way of thinking. But I think that's alongside much more long-standing groups like some of the far-right extremist groups that we saw at the Capitol. Those groups have been around for a long time. They will continue to be around in the future. They really took advantage of that historical moment and have been pretty savvy about recruiting some other individuals into their ranks these days.
What can be the institutional response to the reality of guns, weapons, rifles, whatever, in a legislative branch, whether Republican or Democrat? What is the expected or best outcome for the institution?
Well, Tom, I think our institutions, and this is true for Democrats and Republicans, that most individuals, most lawmakers, and even most American citizens have pretty strong respect for our institutions. They want to see them function well. They don't want to see them becoming places of brawls and violences, even maybe as they were in the past in our history. And so I think it makes sense that certain safeguards are put in place to make sure that happens. With that said, I don't think anyone in Washington wants to see the more militarized state that it's in right now continue forever. Those precautions were put in place, obviously, for a reason following January 6th, but they will be, it will go back to some kind of normal in time, but probably with more security measures than we had in the past.
Julie, in addition to the highly partisan discussions around impeachment, around the stimulus package, there has been an international effort to regain ties with some of the allies of the United States. One interesting note is that President Biden has not yet had a conversation with Xi Jinping, even though he has had a conversation with Vladimir Putin of Russia. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's a couple of different things, Lisa. First and foremost, is that with Biden, we can expect him to really continue some of the policies of the Trump administration in terms of being tough on China. Biden is not looking to really change that relationship that much, even though his approach might be a little bit different. I think with and that phone call, Biden is also trying to show that the U.S. will stand up to Russia as well in a way that was different from the Trump administration. But there were just certain situations of urgency there that required that call and that engagement. The New START treaty, for one, that would have expired this past week if they hadn't had that call and that kind of engagement, as well as trying to put some pressure on Russia around Navalny and the demonstrations around his detention.
Julie, always wonderful to catch up with you. Thanks for being with us. Julie Norman there, University College of London professor. A really important day down in Washington, D.C., Tom. I think we've all almost become desensitized to impeachment proceedings, which is quite remarkable in this country, but that's where we're at.
Maybe you've got to be from abroad to make that observation, John, but I think desensitization, whatever anybody's politics is, really nails it. And we'll have to see. I mean, Leslie Vinjamuri was just lights out with Chatham House 2 hours ago saying we all underestimate what we're going to witness today.
Unlike last time, Tom, some nuances. Do we know where Senator McConnell sits on this? And I know that typically you wouldn't predetermine the outcome, but that was the story.
We closed another position on euro, 121.024. Show you just right here. So you guys, you're doing well today. Yeah, well done.
McConnell stands, or frankly, where any of the Republicans stand. They don't want to answer that question, which is the reason why it's going to be a constitutional issue of whether this is even constitutional to be trying a president in Congress after they have already left office. They want to make it that, and they want to kick out the trial and end it quickly. And 17 Republicans would have to switch sides to really push this forward.
They're the numbers, but I think that's the point. I mean, typically, for any kind of trial, you wouldn't want to predetermine the outcome. You wouldn't want to know what the jury thought before the trial had happened. But that was the story last time around, and I think that's probably the difference this time around. But like I say, I mean, most people in this country, Tom, this used to be a really moving moment. I mean, we've hardly ever seen it in the United States of America, but when it happened, or it started, or the thought of it that it might happen, this used to be a really moving moment, and now it's just...
We're desensitized.
What is it?
I think
totally.
You nailed it. We're desensitized, and also just getting to the next week. And, you know, I look at the timeline here, it feels like it's like April 15th, or, you know, June 1st, and we're just weeks, literally days into 2021. That's the way the news flow's been.
Absolutely. I want to check in on the price action of this morning just quickly. A little soft. It is a little soft. Equity's down just a little bit. Just a little bit. We're coming in 0.2%, down about
go to cash.
7 points. Call it -8, Tom. 3,900. Go to cash. This move in the last 3 months has just been...
It's been a dip.
Just unreal. Yeah, that's a dip you want to buy, Tom. A 20% move higher. From New York, this is Bloomberg.